Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly beer tasting series, now in 2022. We are going to bring something a little different to you today. We're going to be doing Canada Does Germany. Germany has a huge number of beer styles, from Kolsch to Berliner Weiss to the Bavarian styles like Hefeweizen and Dunkel to, of course, German Pils. And there's some absolutely exceptional examples of those being brewed right here in Canada, so let's get right to it. Now, we couldn't do a Canadian German beer tasting without talking about Fahr. Fahr is based in Calgary. They only do German beer styles, and they do them exceptionally well. High concept German beers, very faithful, very traditional, but made in North America. We're going to do their Hefeweizen and their Dunkel as kind of our Bavarian contingent. Next up, new for us, and a bit of the inspiration for doing this, Four Winds has the new Hüft Gold German Pils, an absolutely exceptional Pilsner that kind of pushed us to do this event because I really wanted to taste this with you folks. Finally, this is not the beer we're tasting. I just happened to be out of establishment, my best friend's girl Kolsch. So this is standing in as a, supplemental can. By the time you're seeing this, we'll definitely have some back again. So this will be the My Best Friend's Girl Kolsch, so another classic German style. We have something a little darker in the Dunkel, but this is going to be a very safe, very easy beer tasting because while these are complex beers, they're also very, very accessible. Something that everybody will enjoy. All that and more, $20 as always, coming up on Wednesday, January the 12th at 6 o'clock. I'll see you then. Hello everyone, welcome to our Canada Does Germany beer tasting, and listening to the promo there, I do actually have to correct myself. I said that Fahr was based in Calgary. They're actually based in Turner Valley, Alberta, which I realized when I started digging into not only the history of Fahr Brewing and what their philosophies are and everything else, but also how to pronounce the founder's first name, because that was not immediately obvious to me. Thank you, YouTube, for pronunciations. We have 4 beers in front of us, and we will be doing them in this order. We will be starting with the establishment My Best Friend's Girl Kolsch. We'll be going on to the Four Winds Hüft Gold Pilsner, the Fahr Hefeweizen, and finally the Fahr Dunkel. So let's get some Kolsch in our glasses, and let's talk a little bit about German beer, and a little bit about the debt as North Americans that we owe them. So Germany as a country in terms of brewing is very much like France or Spain in terms of wine. They have an absolutely massive number of styles. They have darker styles like Schwarzbier or Dunkel, and Dunkel just mean dark. Technically, Schwarzbier might fall under the category of Dunkel. So might a particularly roasty Alt, or certainly the Dunkel Weizenbox like the Schneider Aventinus. So Dunkel is kind of a catch-all category for darker beers, but they do have all of that going on. On the sour side, they have Gose and they have Berliner Weiss. They of course have their wonderful cloudy wheat beers from Bavaria in their Hefeweizens, and then they have a lot of different styles of pale beer. They have Dortmunder, they have German Pils, they have Munich Helles, they have a huge variety of them, of course, Kolsch. Germany has almost as many different beer styles as they have towns, and that's especially true when you start digging into the kind of household beers of Kellerbier and Zwickel and Zeugelbier, where, as I understand with Zeugel, like basically you bring up your homebrew out of the cellar, you hang up a sign saying we're a bar this week, and you just serve this beer out of your living room until you run out, and then you just pass on the sign to someone else, and then it's their turn to be like the neighborhood pub, which sounds absolutely incredible. So let's dig a little bit into Kolsch style beer. Of course, not actually Kolsch, because Kolsch, like champagne, is now regionally protected. True Kolsch can only come from the city of Cologne in Western Germany, but Kolsch style beer, just like port style wine or champagne style sparkling wine, can be made anywhere. So this one is by establishment, which is appropriate because I've got my establishment glass because I broke my annex one. And what makes Kolsch so unique? I mean, we have California Common, aka steam beer, which is kind of a lagered ale, but that's very much an ale yeast that is brewed at lager temperatures. Hang on, I might have this one backwards. I think that's actually lager yeast brewed at ale temperatures. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. What Kolsch is a beer that is effectively finished fermenting as an ale at room temperature, slightly below, and is then subsequently lagered. So you get all those spicy primary fruit characteristics from that initial warm yeast fermentation, but then after the fact with that lagering, you get those delicate fruity notes from sitting so long, kind of like the Annex Baltic Porter had those very delicate notes from that lagering step right at the end. When I say lagering, I mean an extended aging process at cold temperatures. Basically, that just encourages some very different flavor compounds to form in the beer, rather than the simple ones that tend to form in the 3 to 5 day fermentation for an ale. The Germans, and this is very fair, Eric brings up the point that Fahr doesn't seem like the sort of folks who would appreciate mushy language like they could be considered a Dunkel. Yes, for anyone who's ever missed one of my rants about German wine law and why it's the greatest thing in the world, the Germans don't like mushy language. In fact, they got rid of the term Halbtrocken for their wines because it meant half dry. And they said, well, how is something half dry? It's either dry or it's not. So for wines that were drier than they would normally be suggested by the label, like for example, if you were buying a Riesling Cabernet, I would expect it to be about a number 3 in sweetness, and a Spätlese is about a number 4. But if the wine is fermented a little more fully and the alcohol is a little higher, they can be less dry or less sweet and drier than you might expect. Those are now labeled as Feinherb, which is its own specific designation, which doesn't just mean half dry, because that was exactly what Eric said, a mushy weasel word that to the Germans at least didn't mean enough. So yes, traditionally speaking, all dark German beers would fall under the heading of Dunkels, and then they have their own substyle. Munich Dunkel, Schwarzbier, some Alts, they'll all fall under that heading. But he's absolutely correct. And yes, I think that I think part-time model definitely steals some of the thunder, being a New Zealand Pils here. But yeah, my best friend's girl, kind of the forgotten gem of the core lineup. Like, we sell so much Skyrocket and so much Afternoon Delight and an absolutely embarrassing amount of Jamrock. We sell so much Jamrock. I think we actually sell more Jamrock than we sell Super Saturation, which is madness. But yeah, in the core range for establishment, my best friend's girl, for whatever reason, kind of is the unloved one of the four. I mean, there's always going to be a dead last beer, just like with our beer tastings. There's always something that has to come last. And yeah, for whatever reason, this one always seems to be, in terms of sales, at the tail end, which is quite sad. Compare it to part-time model. I mean, they're both bright, they're both crispy, they're both clean. This doesn't have that intense hop bitterness and that very pretty hop aroma that the part-time model does, because the part-time model is a Pils and not a Kolsch. Kolsch should not have a whole lot of perceptible hop aroma. It should be very malt focused, and to a certain point it is more about the yeast, because what makes Kolsch different from an ale, what makes it different from a lager, is how the yeast is treated and how the beer is temperature conditioned, which impacts how the yeast behaves. So the very subtle little tiny differences that are going to show up in a Kolsch because of that treatment, you wouldn't notice them. Like a Kolsch IPA would be completely pointless, because why wouldn't just do an IPA? The little tiny flavor differences are going to show up in a Kolsch. Once you add a whole bunch of hops to it, that's just going to disappear. It's such a subtle, delicate little thing that lagering the beer after it's already fermented does, that if you hop it aggressively, it'll just vanish, and you might as well have just done a standard fermentation. That said, part-time model is, of course, my favorite establishment beer. I do like it better than this, but I mean, in terms of being a very faithful Kolsch style, this does it very, very well. You get that kind of creamy grain characteristic. You get that almost blink and you miss it, like flinty gun smoke characteristic that I think is, for me, like the big waving red flag of this is a Kolsch, and if it's not there, then it's not a Kolsch. Why is it more complex than most Kolsch? Because there's always the temptation of more is more. You know, we're going to do a Kolsch, but we're going to, you know, use this really special yeast, or we're going to do a Kolsch and we're going to hop it, or we're going to do a Kolsch and it's going to be a butterscotch Kolsch because we're going to add butterscotch to it. Kolsch is such a very subtle style, and it has to be approached with a less is more attitude, and it has to be approached with the lagering will be done when it's done. I mean, to make a very simple blonde ale is very easy. You could have this in and out of the tanks in 5 days and just be in cans after a week. To take this, you know, for what is, for lack of a better word, their entry-level beer, somebody comes in and says, well, I want a Bud Light. This is their Bud Light equivalent for establishment. To take the time to fully attenuate the beer as an ale and then lager it after the fact in order to introduce those really subtle, delicate characteristics without giving into the temptation that we're really going to put our stamp on it. So we're going to introduce, you know, Hallertauer Blanc or Cascade or this crazy new hop you've never heard of and make it our own. You really have to be very hands-off and also have to say, no, this is our entry-level beer. Yes, we could make it more cheaply as a blonde ale or a golden ale, but that extra lagering time is going to add the complexity, and that's why I really respect establishment as brewers, is because they did take that extra time, and that's why this beer shows so well. They didn't try to overdo it and try to be louder, and they didn't try to rush it. This is done very faithfully, and that's why this is the Kolsch we're tasting. There are a couple of Kolsches in Alberta that do come from Germany, or at least there were pre-pandemic. Unfortunately, I don't think they're shipped in temperature-controlled conditions, and I know for a fact that when they're stored up in St. Albert at Connect, they are definitely not temperature-controlled while they're being stored, and the beer suffers as a result of that. So if you get to go to Cologne, I'm sure the Kolsch is amazing, but I don't think any of the true Kolsches that we've had here have been handled well enough or stored well enough for them to drink exactly the way they should. There was very definitely a benefit to me buying this right at establishment out of their fridge in Calgary, driving it 2 hours down and then putting it straight in my fridge, where, you know, I can pretty much speak to, other than the 2 hours rattling around in the back of one of our terrible vans, I can speak to how this beer has been handled basically its whole life. Ooh, like you're thinking those cap gun strips, yes. And yes, some of the styles in Germany do tend to be a little more aggressively carbonated. Particularly Zwickel is very famous for being aggressively carbonated. But yes, here I think it's done at a little more of a North American level. That said, I haven't had Kolsch in Germany, so I can't really say. Yes, it should come off as smoky, but not overtly sulfury. If you're getting a lot of like sulfur notes in terms of gunpowder, then I think it's a bit much. It should be smoky, a bit carbony, but it shouldn't be aggressively sulfury. Okay. We spent 12 minutes talking about this Kolsch. Let's move merrily right along. Our only beer on the table, not coming from Alberta, and actually the beer that inspired me to do a German theme because I liked it so much, Four Winds Hufgold. Now we've done a lot of Four Winds. We have done Juxtapose. We have done... I just had a complete mental lapse there. What the heck is their sour called? Cannot remember. No, Juxtapose is the IPA. Oh. I can't remember what the sour is called. But we've done Four Winds. I think basically the entire core range, just over time. We've definitely done it. The Hufgold is brand new for them. This is their German-style Pils, and to me, the nose is lovely. And we'll get into the nose here in a second, because it smells very appropriate. There's some nice cereal. There's just a touch of like interesting sweet corniness. There's some hoppy, like astringent backbone there. But in the mouth, it's like mineral water, rainwater. It's got this, I don't know, it's this intangible, like, anytime you know, maybe buy a bottle of water and you're hoping it's going to be something special, and it's water. You know, it's Aquafina or it's Evian or it's Perrier or whatever. It's just water. But I don't know. I mean, I have like this memory of, going up to Ty Lake up in BC and going to my friend's cabin, and they got their water from this tap that was just like a pipe punched into like a rock face. And they got their water from like a natural spring, and had this incredible flavor to my memory now, that it tasted the way fresh rainfall smells. It tasted ozony. And this in the mouth to me triggers that memory, that flavor memory for me of what mineral water, like right from a rock face at this random cabin in the middle of BC that probably doesn't exist anymore. It tastes like that to me, and that's why I like Huff Gold so much. Oh, that's just lovely. Um, are we getting spoiled? I don't know if you're necessary. I mean, you're getting spoiled in the sense that I drive up every 2 weeks, so you get seasonals nobody else gets. And also because I got in with 88 very early, um, I think we get a little bit more, and we get access to things that a lot of stores don't, either because I drive up or because I have a long-standing relationship with the brewery. I think we get very lucky, very special treatment from some of these breweries. In terms of handling and condition, I mean, all of those breweries I just named, they all sell very quickly. I can't imagine that they're sitting at Connect for months and months and months and months. So I don't think the condition's a huge issue. I'm just really picky. I don't even like leaving the beer in a van overnight. Like, there's been a couple of times where I've gotten up to Calgary and then the weather went to hell. And then I ended up like leaving the beer and the van in an underground parking garage because it wouldn't freeze and it would be, safer there. So no, I don't. I'm very picky, and I think that maybe the beer is very slightly better because I'm that picky, but I don't want to toot my own horn because I am that picky. I'm never going to stop being that picky, but I don't know if it makes that big a difference either. In terms of freshness dated, I will say in terms of freshness, picking it up right at the brewery versus getting it from Connect, where, I mean, in theory, they're first in, first out, but Connect is a giant warehouse with thousands and thousands of products, and they're not perfect. Human error creeps in. I have occasionally gotten stuff from Connect that was like a year old, not from any of the breweries we're discussing here. It was a keg of winter IPA from a brewery that swore everything at Connect was fresh. Now, were they being a little dishonest with me? Maybe. Or maybe it had genuinely been at Connect that long just because they weren't cycling their keg inventory properly. So, in short answer, I don't think that I'm doing anything that special, but I can toot my own horn a little bit that I can speak for the freshness on anything that I have in the store. And if anything is out of date, that's absolutely my fault. It's not Connect's or anyone else's, at least for the stuff I go to Calgary for. Yeah, and crackers for days. Craig, you say time for a Pils shootout. It's interesting you say that. I am going to be out of town Wednesday, February 23rd. And I was wondering if you and Eric wanted to co-host one of these. Just going to put it right out there, just in front of everybody. But yes, if you would like to peer pressure Craig and Eric for me, I'm offering up the table and the beer. And you two can decide your own topic. I will help you get the beers. We'll bring it all in. We will sell it through the store. We'll make sure we handle all the logistics. But if you guys want to, stand behind the table and talk to the camera for an hour, I'm offering you that chance.
I'll make you a lower thirds.
Yeah, Aaron's going to make you like title cards and everything else.
Yeah.
And make you look real good. What's the difference between German and Italian Pilsners in terms of production? It's the dry hopping. German Pils, at least traditionally, did not do that extra step of dry hopping. Dry hopping is not really new, but it's certainly, in terms of popular use, really comes out post North American IPA explosion with Sierra Nevada and Stone and Deschutes and all of those cats. They're really the ones who got really into dry hopping. Italian Pils is basically a German style Pilsner with the added on maybe a little more boiled hops, but also a big dry hop at the end. German Pils doesn't usually have that dry hop. Well, I guess it looks like Craig's in, and it looks like Eric's in. All right, February 23. It's the Craig and Eric show. I will reach out to both of you tomorrow, and we will get this thing happening. And you guys can pick your own topic. I said, let's do this Pils thing, but no, whatever you want to do. It's going to be fine, Aaron. Aaron's shaking his head and laughing. And
well, they got to be there for the promo too.
They're gonna have to be there for the promo, but that's fine. We'll get all that. That's the end of February. We'll get it all. We have like a month. We have 6 weeks.
He has to dress up in his medieval armor.
I'm not asking Craig to lark for us. No.
I haven't got there yet. Let's show up as one of his comics.
No, they're just gonna host. They can do it. They can host however they choose to host. And definitely better than me. Christmas is getting really nice creamy marmalade thing, and yeah, there's some really nice cooked orange, preserved orange in here that I'm quite enjoying. If you've been in the shop the last week or so, you'll notice that our shelves look a little picked over. Part of that is the fact that, have you tried to buy broccoli in this town lately? Everything is in short supply, and beer is no exception, especially considering that, getting anything out of Vancouver, Superflux, is incredibly bad with all the flooding and everything else. So there's been no new Phillips seasonals, there's been no new Superflux, there's been no nothing. But we did get 4 wins, which was lucky. We got their Huff Gold Pils. And we brought it in just hoping we'd have a new winner. We cracked it open in the back. We bought a 4-pack between the 4 of us. We all had a can. We were like, yep, this rules. We definitely need to talk about this. And that's why we did this, Germany Comes to Canada tasting, was we all loved this. Eric, it was the role you were born to play. I love it. Yes. Let's move on. So we've done a couple of really cool beers. We've done Establishment's Kolsch. We've done Four Winds Pilsner. They're lovely. But let's be fair. If we're talking about German beer in Canada, I mean, you kind of have to talk about Fahr. Jochen Fahr is, he's a PhD in, I actually didn't understand in his bio exactly what his degree was in, but let's just go with microbiology because that's as close as I'm going to come. He's a brewing genius, and he does everything in this incredibly traditional German style. He's going by the Reinheitsgebot or the 1516 Bavarian purity laws. He's just a master of these styles. I could gush, but I'd rather just pour you a beer and let you experience what I'm experiencing. Because this Hefeweizen, I want to get some cloud in this. That's better. Bavarian Hefeweizen, it literally means cloudy wheat. It should have clove. It should have, and I particularly get either, I said double bubble, Aaron said Bazooka Joe, but those hard 5 cent or 1 cent, depending on how old you are, maybe the 25 cents now or some awful thing. Those old school pink bubble gums, that's the first nose for me. And it's tied to the clove, and then you absolutely do get banana, and that's coming from the yeast. You get that rich, weighty, round wheat characteristic that's just so rich and pretty. You get, and when you get this in the mouth, the carbonation is actually really nice too. We sell Weihenstephaner, and we sell Schneider, and we sell Hacker Schor, and we sell Erdinger. And I actually like this better than any of the actual German Hefeweizens we sell, by quite a margin. And I find that not surprising, but wonderful for this province. I know that everybody has their new IPA of the week, and we're going to be tasting some of those. We're going to do Super Set and Super Juicy and Evening Chorus next week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when you have, we talked about doing something traditional and not trying to overdo it or trying to go too far or trying to put too much of your own stamp on it. They say traditional German beer is strictly brewed in Alberta. Yes, very strictly, very classically. Like, there is no trying to, it's going to be our Hefeweizen, but it's got mangoes and hot peppers in it. There's none of that. It's so classic, and I love that about Fahr. I love that they just, it's like if Bayern out of Montana was actually much better than they are. I absolutely adore their stuff. And yes, it is our first Fahr on the channel, and actually new on the shelves is the new Fahr Doppelbock, which we got sample cans of last week. We all loved them, and so we brought it in. So we have another Fahr beer, actually in tall cans. Ironically, his super strong Doppelbock comes in tall cans, whereas his 5.3% Hefe comes in the small. So that's fun. And yeah, this is something we were talking about a little bit last week with Rupert about maybe some of these traditional beers coming back. I mean, yes, we're going to get to IPAs, and when it gets a little warmer, we're going to get sours. Absolutely we are. But being able to do a Kolsch and a Pils and a Hefe and a Munich-style Dunkel, the Munich-style or Bavarian style, we'll talk about that in a minute. But being able to do these styles, it's so nice to come back to a Hefe, because I can't remember the last time I had one. Just like with the Staircase Wit, I couldn't remember the last time I'd had one. It's nice to explore some of these things that aren't an IPA or a sour, because Devin and I were talking, especially this spring, summer, it's like we need to stop doing IPAs and sours. Yes, they sell better, but we're burning ourselves out. And we actually forced ourselves to take a bit of a step back and say, there's a world beyond IPAs and sours. And we had a hell of a time finding beers to actually do, to keep that promise, to fulfill that goal, just because everybody was brewing IPAs and sours because that's what sold. But we filtered through a lot of stuff to find things that weren't. We did an Oktoberfest tasting this October, yes, and we did do a German theme. And I believe we did the Marzens by Snake Lake and Annex. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we did the Vienna lagers from those two as part of that tasting. Yeah, it is really nice. Like, I love the font. I think it is wonderful packaging. And the orange citrus thing is a combination of yeast and hops. I think mostly the yeast. But I do think, unlike Belgian Wit, they don't add any orange or coriander to it. And I would almost certainly say Fahr would not, because that would violate the Reinheitsgebot, because there's certainly no orange peels or coriander in their 4-ingredient stricture. So no, I would say this is definitely coming from mostly the yeast, possibly fermentation temperature, maybe some endemic characteristic of the wheat itself. But yeah, this isn't going to have any orange peel added. I've not been to the tap room for Fahr, no. I'm just going to enjoy this one for a minute because I really like it. Actually, while I'm enjoying this, I'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next week here. So, it finally happened. After 2 damn years of trying, Cabin's actually going to have a guest for us. It finally bloody happened. So, we don't know who yet. I'm thinking it's going to be Hayden, but it could be anyone really from Cabin. They're going to be joining us, and we're going to do a Cabin event with someone from Cabin. I think we've done 5 Annex events with someone from Annex, and like 3 establishment ones and at least 2 88s. But finally, Cabin's going to send someone to talk to us about beer. Virtually, like they're not actually going to be here. But we are going to do their 3 newest releases. We are going to do their amazing, that's what they call it, not my endorsement, but their amazing lemon meringue pie ale, their evening course New Zealand hopped pale ale, which I do think is genuinely amazing, and their super juicy, which is their collaboration with Kilter. Now, I'm also throwing Supersat in here, and I did get razzed a little bit by Mike and Devin about the fact we've done Supersat so many times before, but we have someone from Cabin joining us, and this is like their their flagship beer. And I can't talk about cabin or with someone about cabin without talking about supersaturation, to be completely ignoring the elephant in the room. They make so many versions of this. I feel like we have to talk about it, just because, I mean, yes, Blind Men's New England Pale really kind of set this whole hazy IPA ball rolling, but I mean, Supersat is quite literally our best-selling beer in the store, and like some weeks our best-selling item in the store. Like we sell 980 wines ish on the floor. We have a whole wall of spirits. We have like 100 single malt scotches. I think we sell almost 3,000 different things. And super saturation some weeks is our best-selling item out of 3,000. Absolute madness. So yes, that will be coming up. Can we ask them what the hell they were thinking with lemon meringue? In fact, I encourage it. It is actually quite good, but yes, you definitely will be free to ask them. Well, cabin show, yes, because I actually gave them a little bit of sass about not showing the last time they said they were going to be here. So then I'm gonna tell people you're going to be here, and if you're not here, we're going to spend the entire night shitting on you. And they said nope, we're going to be there. So we'll see. It's a week away, but they actually said Hayden will do it, and if Hayden won't do it, it'll be this person, and if that person won't do it, it'll be this person. So they seem pretty committed. So fingers crossed. I just want more time with this, but I can have time with that after. We have extra cans of this.
Drained.
Down the hatch. Right. Fahr's Dunkel. They say banana chocolate chip bread. Could have just called it banana bread because that's what that is, but all right, it's 3 different things. But it does aptly describe what we should be expecting. You should get chocolate from a Dunkel. You should get banana, certainly. It should have grainy, bready, yeasty notes as well. And I think this brings all of that together very well. There's certainly the chocolate, and I would also add on to that like raisin, almost into rum raisin. White pepper. A little bit of that bubble gum, but it's much more restrained here. Like if you didn't get it in the Hefe, you're not going to get it in the Dunkel. Yeah, the Hefe is wonderful, and I'm loving that we're doing more styles like that. I mean, next week it's IPA, lemon meringue, pie, ale. But I am trying to steer us away from this path as much as I can. Although I really want to talk about Easy Answers West Coast Pale because it rules, but yeah, we'll get around to that eventually. Grape Crush. Oh gosh, show them the Imperial Stout tasting. Yeah, that's one I don't remember the end of. Oh, there and I did split a very small can of the new Opium Cake.
Oh yeah.
Imperial Stout by 8 Wired before we went on camera because we were done shooting the promo by like 10 past 5 and we had like 50 minutes to kill. So yeah, we had a really nice, was it poppy seed orange vanilla raisin something Imperial Stout. It was very good.
Yeah, strong and delightful.
Yeah, we got a new 8 Wired shipment in, so we got a new New Zealand pill from them, appropriate because they're from New Zealand. We got that, and we got a sour double IPA, which I haven't had yet. So Grape Crush. I'm really looking for like that purple slurpy smell, and I am not finding it. Aaron? Oh, you don't even glass yet.
Dunkel.
Tyler, I am trying to find that purple slurpy, and I am just not coming to you. Maybe it's glass shape, but I am not getting there. For me, it is exactly what they say. It's banana, chocolate chip, bready, rich. What's the alcohol in this? Because it seems low for a Dunkel.
5.3.
Yeah, 5.3. I was going to say a lot of the Dunkels that we get here at least, and I'm largely referencing like the Aventinus, which is a stronger beer. I often associate this style with having like a certain spearminty character, which is entirely due to the alcohol level. This doesn't, and I won't say I'm missing it necessarily, but For this style, the one that I've drank the most of is the Schneider Aventinus, and it does have that higher alcohol spearmint character. And I find myself missing that little bit of refreshment from it. And that's not a criticism of the beer at all. It's just my experience with this style. Oh, that's so soft though. Like the Hefe was actually fairly like rich, and this is just so calming. This is,
you back.
yeah, back here for the bitterness. Yeah,
And I
that's neat.
personally wonder whether we did these in the wrong order. These two.
I think we might have. Yeah. I mean, I normally would think that, you know, the darker beer should go after the lighter.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think you're right. And actually, who said? Kevin actually just said, I'm not liking this as much as usual after the Hefe.
Yeah.
I think he's right. I think the Hefe actually might be the bigger beer, despite being paler. Like I don't have any issue with these going first because, you know, they're very pale and very light and crispy. But yeah, I think the Hefe's the bigger beer. Yeah, and that's fair. Flat Coke. I don't know where I'm getting people getting all this super sugary stuff because I've had very sweet Dunkels. This isn't one of them.
That's those like taste buds that are back there that are, because that's what happens to me with flat Coke.
You get it back there.
Totally. It's a weird sugar that hits you back. Caramelly sweetness.
Who are all these people drinking Flat Coke?
I don't know. It's a necessity. Rite of passage at one point, anyway.
I agree that we do need an all-Fahr tasting. They've been super excited about us doing this event, so we will definitely have Fahr on to do a proper experience, but
Totally.
I'm excited to do just these two, at least for tonight. Marathon runners apparently drink Flat Coke.
Who?
Marathon runners.
Really?
I have no idea. That's what Chris said. I don't know. He could be completely making it up just to make me look bad on camera. In fact, I hope he is because that's hilarious. Yeah. But no, he says that marathon runners drink Flat Coke.
He'll say it out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Like Ron Burgundy, he'll read anything you put on the teleprompter. Yeah. You know, we spent 12 minutes on the first beer, and here we are done at 6:35. I genuinely was looking down at my watch to make sure we weren't running over time. I thought it was about 6:50. We kind of packed a lot of content into 35 minutes there. Yeah. Where are we ranking?
Yeah,
Ooh. Oh, that's so hard because they're so different.
In this,
I think it got dealt a tough hand because it was after the Hefe, which it shouldn't have been. But I'm gonna give the Pilsner the 1. I'm giving the Hefe the 2. That's easy. And then I do think there's a gap. I'll put the Kolsch 3rd and the Dunkel 4th. And that's not a slight on the Dunkel. I just think we tasted it in the wrong order. But that was the hand it was dealt. But that Hefe is a giant winner for me. The Pilsner was the inspiration for the tasting. That Kolsch is wonderful. And the Dunkel, I mean, it's great, but something in a four beer tasting has to come forth. Give the Dunkel a few more minutes. Just wait. All right, let's warm it up a bit.
okay.
Put these back in the correct order so people can actually rank. What do we have? Chris likes 2, 1, 3, 4. Fair enough, Chris. This is making a strong case for itself, I will say. 3, 2, 1, 4. Eric's just... obviously, Eric has the Dunkel as his number 1. So...
Smell some coffee beans or something before I taste it next.
There's also a real soy sauce component to this in the nose that I just got. Because I stuck my nose in it briefly and I got something almost teriyaki. Which to me does kind of say this has soy sauce to it. Is Dunkel just about the malting? I mean, any dark beer is about, you know, the barley, because it's not like they make black hops. But yes, it is. It's about the malting, and it's about the yeast strain, and it's certainly about the water and very careful brewing, but yes, to a certain point. As much as it is also about the yeast strain, it is very much about the exact recipe for the malted barley. Whether you're using chocolate or biscuit or roasted or what have you. And yeah, I think the Dunkel would be showing better for a lot of people if I'd done it this way. I really stressed this order, and I took the Dunkel and said, well, it's the dark one, and I assumed it would be a little stronger because a lot of Dunkels are, and I just threw it at the end. I very carefully retasted these. Well, I initially tasted them and said, oh wow, that Hefe is huge, and put it at the end, and then I tasted and retasted these two to pick the order. I just threw the Dunkel at the end because I assumed the Dunkel would just be big. And it is big. It's just not as big as the Hefe, which is surprising. It's complex, it's gentle, it's fascinating. It's something that if you bought a 6-pack and spent a week with it, you'd learn a lot about it. Totally. But in a 45-minute beer tasting where I accidentally tasted it in the wrong order, we are unfortunately the victims of our own constraints here.
Now we owe him one, eh?
Yeah, now we owe him one. Yeah. Has everyone been making Dunkels wrong? I don't have any reference point. I can talk intelligently about, you know, Pilsners, IPAs, some sours, beer styles I'm very familiar with. Dunkels I cannot talk intelligently about. This is a style that I do not drink enough. Yeah, it seems like the logical order, Kevin. It was wrong. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap her up there. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Thank you as always, Aaron. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all next week for Cabin. Let's see if Cabin shows up. In the meantime, I'm Kyle with Andrew Hilton, and
you booked them, they will come, man.
Well, we've booked them before, man. Like it didn't happen. So, yeah. No, didn't work out at all. And I get the reference, just no. All right, I think we'll wrap her up there. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you next week for Cabin. Take care and have a great rest of your Wednesday.